So I want to start our time together just with a quick chalice lighting to center ourselves. So I invite you to take a breath wherever you are. Gratitude for the day, time to gather in community. Grateful for this time and the important work we are each called to. And I'm going to share this reading from Maya Angelou as I light this. When you do nothing, you feel overwhelmed and powerless. But when you get involved and feel the sense of hope and accomplishment that comes from knowing you are working to make things better, that's where hope is born. For the work of moving from overwhelm to effective change, sustained by love and justice and community, we're grateful. So I am thankful to this group and to Jack and Gus and so many others that are doing the important work of both logistics and content for caucuses and the political realm in Rochester. I've been thinking recently about that sense of overwhelm with the pandemic, with political realms right now. And for me, I know it's a soul overwhelm. It's trying to regularly remember what I have to contribute in the midst of the world, even though it might feel small. One phrase that I just wanted to start with and then hand it over to you that someone posted recently was that our emotional systems were wired to be able to respond to grief and trauma in our village, not globally, right? That sense of we're wired to be able to hold quite a bit, but we can't hold the whole world, right? So I've just been thinking about the importance of local impact and local action, as well as being mindful of the global picture, but also knowing where our limits are, being okay with that, mindful of that, and how we can affect change within those. So I'm holding on to those pieces of wisdom these days. So I'll turn it over to either Gus or Jack, whoever wants to begin, and I'm glad to support however I can. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you, Luke. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. It's great to see some familiar faces. It's great to see some unfamiliar, some new faces. My name is Jack Dudley. I'm a Southern Minnesota organizer with Isaiah and Faith Minnesota, building in partnership with Luke and others here tonight. Over the past several months, I've been with Isaiah for almost a year now, and excited to be on the cusp of another caucus process. I know that many folks at UU may have been involved in the caucus work in 2020 or in 2018. So this may be a lot of information that you've heard before. There's a little bit of a difference with the caucus process this year for the DFL side of things. So we will go over that, especially at the end of the meeting. But otherwise, it's just great to see you all here tonight. It's great to be here with all of you. Gus, if you want to introduce yourself really quick.
Sure. Gus Braga, and most of you know me. I'm from First Unitarian Universalist, and I've been working with Isaiah for about 3 years now.
Thanks, Gus. Luke, it looks like there's a chat function that just goes directly to you. Is there?
Yeah, sorry, that's I think a holdover from another meeting. I'll open that up so folks can use it.
Got it. If we're able to use the chat here in a second, if folks could just go ahead and share your name and then just a couple words about an issue that you care about or a concern that you have in the world. And
it should be open now.
All right. Yeah, so you should be able to switch your chat to send to everyone. So just introduce yourself, your name, and an issue that you care about or concern that you have in the world. And while you think about that and while you write that down, I'm just going to give a brief introduction to the organization that I represent, that I work for, and that Gus and Luke and others here have partnered with and built in coalition with. So Isaiah is a coalition of people of faith and shared values who advocate powerfully and collectively for racial, economic, and environmental justice in Minnesota. We are an organization largely engaged in state-level politics, but fighting for a new people-centered politics in Minnesota that puts our communities and our needs at the center rather than the most powerful and the most wealthy, or a politics that focuses on just the parties and the candidates rather than us, who are really at the center of this conversation. We aim to build accountable relationships for our community with government and elected officials, and foster belief and investment in collective decision-making. UU has been a longtime member of the Isaiah Coalition of Congregations, and our statewide partnerships have grown to include a series of mosques, Black congregations and barbershops, independent childcare centers, and a young adult coalition. And we've partnered on caucus engagement, like I mentioned, in 2018 and 2020 in the past. So a few folks here today may have participated previously. So maybe if I could get a show of hands of folks that have participated in caucus in the past. Thanks for those that have introduced yourself. If anyone else wants to continue sharing your name and the issue that you're concerned about, it looks like a good number of people tonight have participated in caucus before. So this will be a review for many people. And we'll get into the details of the caucus training and how to participate in the GOP and DFL caucuses this year. But first, I want to spend a little bit of time. Gus and I are going to spend some time with all of you thinking about some of the bigger questions. Who are we as a group, as a community, as a partnership between Isaiah and UU, and what are we fighting for and why? So I know for me in this fight for a people and planet-centered democracy, where Rochester is kind of at ground zero in this fight for our democracy. For me, you know, growing up here in Southern Minnesota as a closeted queer kid, I grew up in Faribault, which is about an hour from Rochester, and, you know, not a tiny town, but not a big town either. And growing up, you know, I came to feel or learn from living in the world around me that to feel like I really belonged or could really be welcome or live my life the way I wanted to, I needed to leave. That a town like Faribault, an area like Southern Minnesota, just wasn't a place where I could or would want to live. And I did leave. I left the region and I left Minnesota altogether. And that still didn't make me feel like I was safe where I truly belonged, or that the world around me was a world that was investing in people like me or people that were struggling. And really the experience of the 2016 election and realizing that, you know, white folks, especially in the Midwest and in greater Minnesota, the animosities that they might carry were being manipulated by the rich and the powerful to turn us against our neighbors and against one another. And that the forces that I thought that I had run away from or tried to escape were being weaponized to hurt all of us, so many of the people that I care about. And for me, that was a wake-up call back into this work, back to Minnesota, to build partnership with neighbors in towns like the one where I grew up, to fight for a better future that is inclusive of all of us. So that's what I'm fighting for. That's what really has brought me into this work. Gus, I would love if you would maybe share some of what you've thought about on this question.
You know, to name a couple of the many things I'm fighting for is for me and my family's personal safety, and for all colored people of color, and especially Black people, that we can be free from physically and emotionally being attacked, followed in stores, pulled over by the police for no reason. An example is of my 37-year-old son, while passing Texas twice, a highway patrolman pulled him over for no reason, verbally abused him, strip searched him, and his car was searched thoroughly. And of course, the officer found nothing and had to let my son go. And for me here in Rochester, I've had people block my way while walking down the street. I've had even high school students do that. They would come down in a car and they would screech over and they would block my way of walking, and that just wasn't right. And in stores, I've been pushed by even elderly people out of line because they just wanted to be ahead of me. Things like that. And the biggest thing is my personal safety. I'm also, very involved in caring for this planet so that it can care for us. I want to fight for a caring economy. I've been involved in Revolutionary Earth, that's been building organic food for the most insecure people in Rochester. And we know, some of us know about the corporate agriculture, for example, that takes over smaller farms and uses harmful pesticides in their growing soil and chemicals in their watering. So that goes right to our grocery stores, and I don't want to have that kind of food in my body. So those are a couple of things for me. Jack?
Yeah, thank you, Gus. So as we've discussed some of these things, you might have had some sparks or thoughts of your own. We have a discussion question, and we're a small enough group that you're welcome to share your answer in the chat, but if you feel empowered to come off mute and share aloud with folks, please do so. So along the lines of what Gus and I have been discussing, what is something, and it's similar to what we asked before about issues that you care about, but it's a little bit deeper. What is something that currently feels impossible in the world or in this country, our community, that you would like to make possible? What would you like to see change? So take a moment to think about that and share in the chat or come off mute. Yeah, Luke has a great one to start us off, and folks continue to add in the chat or come off mute. Abolition of militarized policing, health equity, real serious action on climate change.
I'm thinking of being able to compromise and to reach agreement on issues. It's so hard to have a discussion with someone of an opposing viewpoint, I find. And the other thing is, I think involvement by white people who are in the middle or upper class. It's real easy to sit back and not do anything, as long as your circumstances are good.
Yeah, thank you, Patty. Any other thoughts?
I agree with Patty, and that was one of the things that I was trying to get typed in. But yeah, I grew up, and again, political parties. I mean, each had liberals and conservatives in them, and there were different politicians that I supported who were on both parties, and the ability to, just to have a discussion, to really debate things. And then, as Patty said, the ability to compromise. We can't have it, yes, we want to have this, this perfect world. And we say, we have to insist on this, but there has to be, give and take. And, I mean, I always appreciate Sheila Cascaden for being able to do that. And, anyway, yeah, so there are lots of issues that, it seems as overwhelming. And can we, make changes in our habits to, stem climate change disaster? But anyway, it just.
Yeah, I fight against our taxes also going for excessive military spending and funding. The US outpaces all other nations in military expenditures, and world military spending totaled more than 1.6 trillion in 2015, and the US accounted for 37% of the total. US military expenditures are roughly the size of the next 7 largest military budgets around the world combined. And the US has also historically devoted a larger share of its economy to defense than many of its key allies. I think it was 20% or even 50% are spent of our taxes are spent on military operations. Department of Defense, with support and encouragement from hundreds of private defense companies, and they has eliminated the distinction between corporations and government, and they operate outside of competitive markets, and they constitute the largest system of corporate welfare in the world has ever known. And the Pentagon doles out hundreds of billions of taxpayer money to private defense companies. US foreign aid requires foreign countries to purchase American weapons in return for their aid, and huge profits go for private defense corporations.
Yeah, thanks, Gus, for sharing about that. I think to your point and to the others that were speaking up and sharing their answer to this question of things that might feel impossible or issues that feel so big and out of reach. You might be wondering why we're talking about these or calling these to question at the beginning of a conversation and training about Caucus. And really, it's because at its core, this opportunity to attend caucuses, to become a delegate, which we'll talk more about what that means, and become a part of the local decision-making process. It is an invitation from defeatism and despair about all of these things to a place of building hope and agency and power with our neighbors to create the world that we deserve. That's what the conversation about being a part of Caucus really is about. So before we get into some details that Gus is going to share just about Caucus itself and how to participate, I'm going to share a few minutes of some background around how Isaiah and our partner organization, Faith in Minnesota, how we orient around caucuses, why we've come to find them to be so important, such a crucial opportunity for us as community members to come together and raise our voices collectively. We really do think of as elections as vehicles to co-govern on our agenda. If we're trying to advance a politics that is about us as people and the issues that we need, then it's our agenda that we're committed to most, a shared set of vision that we want to see advanced. And elections are just a step on that roadmap in advancing our agenda. And over the past decade, Isaiah has had a role as a powerful community-based group, a role at the state capitol, and that doesn't always or even very often necessarily translate into wins at the capitol. Over the past decade, we've had a mixture of full DFL control at the capitol or a split of DFL and GOP control. And in both cases, we've struggled to pass some really straightforward, simple things that our communities need. In the early 2000s, there were a set of experiences at the Capitol around driver's licenses for all. I don't know if folks remember that. A set of experiences around the fight for paid family medical leave. when Democrats had full power and the opportunity to act, and they failed to deliver. Promises were made and then thrown under the bus. And kind of like we're seeing at the federal level today, full control of government by one party didn't mean that what the people really needed was being delivered upon. And the result for our people and our communities was a lowering of expectations of what's possible for our elected officials to deliver, and an abdication of leadership and responsibility to deliver the things that people truly need. So this is pretty negative. And this experience, followed by the 2016 election, where we saw authoritarianism style politics rise in the United States, we needed to pivot from all of that. We needed to get away from this place of despair to a bold message of what we're fighting for. And we decided to build the community power and collective influence through the caucus process to ensure that those that we support on their way to the Capitol or to political power actually deliver and are actually answerable to the people. So to form and hold accountable relationships between the elected officials that we partner with and real people, our neighbors, so we can ensure that our agenda that our communities need and deserve is delivered by those we put in power. So taking our agenda upstream into spaces of decision-making like caucuses in 2018 and 2020, this allowed us to be in a space where candidates were vying for support and for party endorsement and for volunteers. It's the space where we have the most ability to shape and influence the way that candidates for office are thinking about policy and initiate the beginning of an accountable relationship. And I see a comment in the chat. Yes, we did this in the past. These are things that we've decided to do and continue to push forward. And so many people here have been a part of it in the past. And so in the past, through this process, we've been able to co-create and share a faith agenda through the caucus process in 2018 and 2020 that we co-owned and shared together. An agenda that we were committed to more than any other candidate. So I'm going to share that really quickly with folks. Luke, are you able to enable that feature for me? I just want to give a chance for people to look this over. And this faith agenda was not formed by our board, by a set of clergy in a closed room, by elected officials that we partner with. It was formed by the set of delegates that were a part of our movement through the caucus process in 2018 and 2020. It was a process of folks, regular people coming together and deciding that when we're thinking about who we want to support in leadership for our communities, these are the things we want them to have in mind. So I want to give a moment for folks to offer any reaction or reflection on this before I move on to the next portion here. So the starting point for the whole process of our communities becoming active agents in deciding upon a shared agenda and forging a vision for the future together, it starts at caucus, and caucus date is coming up on February 1st. And I'll get into the details. We'll get into the details of what's going to be different this year if you're on the DFL side of things. But I'm going to turn it over to Gus to share a little bit about your reflections of having been involved in the caucus path in 2018 and 2020, and what you can tell us about just the basics of the caucus process. Sure.
You know, Faith in Minnesota and Isaiah are very powerful and empowering. They've educated me on the important issues of Minnesota and how all these issues are so connected. It's really exciting to know that people have the power to get what they want, and they can do it through these organizations. In 2018, we had proposed a number of resolutions for the House and Senate to look at and consider. And the House had taken all of the resolutions that were proposed by Isaiah and Faith in Minnesota. And so they entertained them all and of course it got stopped in the Senate. But it's exciting for me to know that we have power to make changes. Isaiah has also given me a leadership opportunity for growth in what is most important to me. And I think these opportunities are readily available and possible for all of us. So why do we participate? What is the caucus? Precinct caucuses are meetings organized by the DFL and GOP parties to begin the process of selecting candidates for the 2022 elections. Positions that are up for re-election, as some of you know, are really all of the positions. The governor, lieutenant governor, the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, the entire House and Senate are all up for re-election. So whatever stand you take, whatever you like and don't like, you will have to get the people you want elected in office. So it'd be important to be connected to that. Let's see. So the caucuses are also the first step in shaping the candidates, the party platform, the policies and issue positions that are held and prioritized by local candidates and community groups. On caucus night, community members decide whether they would like to caucus with the DFL or GOP parties. In a normal year, they would attend a physical location where they would gather with others to live in the same precinct or collection of neighborhoods and vote on party business. Passed issue resolutions and vote to send a small group of delegates from among the precinct caucus attendees to the next stage, this next stage of the process. Senate district and congressional district conventions. At these conventions, delegates get to exercise agency in voting to endorse their preferred candidates for legislative and congressional office, and resolutions are voted on and passed on to the state level. So why do endorsements matter? Well, a party endorsement is made of 60% of delegates in a district lineup in support of a candidate at the convention. At this endorsement, and this endorsement is so important because it legitimizes the candidate and allows them to receive financial and staff support from the party they've been endorsed by. This makes a huge impact in their ability to launch a strong general election campaign. Because of this threshold, we can together build accountability with candidates by making up a significant block of delegates and showing up not just for ourselves, but with a group of others we're invited to participate. Gives us the power to hold delegate forums with candidates and ask them to prioritize the issues that are most concerned to us. We can ensure that candidates align with our personal and shared visions before giving our support. Caucusing this year in Rochester, the GOP will hold their caucuses in person at 7 p.m. on February 1st at Mayo High School. If that is your party of choice, you should attend the caucus there. The DFL has made the decision to shift to a contactless caucus process this year. That means that anyone that wants to participate will need to fill out and submit a caucus non-attendee form so that they can become a delegate to the local Senate district conventions planned for March 26. And folks can submit their forms by mail or by email or at an in-person drop location on February 1st. Later in this presentation, we'll go through this form and the submission options for folks that want to participate in the DFL caucus. Finally, who usually caucuses? Well, let's see. Usually the caucus attendees are made up of people who already understand the political process pretty well. They are usually folks who have had more experience in local party politics. But this status quo should not necessarily be the case. With so much at stake in this process, we should all have the opportunity to participate. We should have the opportunity to participate and, of course, make our voices heard in our community. We all have the right to be deciders and decision makers in our community, and we don't need to be experts to speak and to be heard and to be powerful. Jack?
Thanks, Gus, for sharing. Before I keep moving forward, I just want to pause for a minute and see if there are any questions that are coming up. I put, for those that are interested in participating on the DFL side of things, I put that form in the chat that people will use to participate in caucus remotely this year. There will not be in-person gatherings for caucus on the DFL side. There will be for the GOP side. I'll dig in a bit more on details about that. But are there any questions right off the bat about what we've covered so far?
A comment maybe. So I've missed one caucus over my voting life. Our most important job is to win. And what I've experienced at previous caucuses, the difficulty is less about advocating for our agenda than it is about, and forgive me here, shutting down ideas that are untenable. So that's that.
Right.
That's not fun. Nobody loves that.
This year, hopefully the caucus process won't be too dramatic since we'll just be filling out the forms. You're right that come gathering all the delegates together at the convention, there will be issues that are contested that people will have different ideas about. And you're right that it's our responsibility as community members to be working together to advance what is going to be effective, for accomplishing the things that we hope to accomplish. So I appreciate those reflections. Any other thoughts before we keep moving forward on?
Yeah, again, I think the real takeaway point is it's our job to win. So that's our top priority.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. We have got a lot at stake, and we've got to deliver. And so we've got a lot of coming together to do to make sure that that's going to happen here. So as Gus was describing about the caucus process, over the past couple of cycles, we've engaged in this. Many of the folks here have engaged in this. And part of the effect of our presence at caucus has been to shape the agenda in a different direction. One concrete example of this is the way that the governor has adopted a lot of the messaging that we put forward around the 2020 election, of funding our communities, of asking the wealthiest to pay their fair share. And that resulted in the governor this year coming out with a really bold budget that he proposed that wasn't passed by the Senate, but showed the extent that he is willing to go to invest in our communities, and ultimately the kind of vision that he would likely put forward if reelected. On top of that, across different regions, like Northfield here in Rochester, other areas, candidates that we've built partnership have been able to get party endorsement, and we've been able to build accountable relationship with them. one example of this is here in Rochester, Liz Bolden. We've been able to build strong partnership with her, and we talk about co-governance, having a tight relationship with our elected officials, so they're an accountable relationship with real people around what we need in this community. And I think that we're seeing that with Liz, and I think a lot of the folks on this call would agree. We meet with her frequently around the work that she is doing at the legislature during session, having our weekly Friday sessions to hear updates from her and other legislators. And it goes the other direction as well. Recently, many of the folks on this call participated in taking action to call upon local school board or city council members to support a universal masking policy for Rochester. I did not send out that action alert just because I felt like it, but because I had conversation with Liz and what she communicated to me about her work as a nurse in the hospital is that things are really bad and that we need our elected officials to step up. So that partnership is what really led to that opportunity for us to be taking action. And ultimately we saw that the council decided to shift in some of their position, and they have put a mask order in place for the time being. Again, we need to call for what we need up here, and we hope that those things are delivered upon, and we build our collective agency and power as much as we can to deliver it. So in 2022, we need to go bigger and bolder. We need to be able to co-govern on our agenda in 2023 at the Capitol and be able to pass the boldest climate legislation in the country. And we need major breakthroughs on childcare and fully funding public education and investments in affordable and accessible housing, paid family medical leave, as we talked about, student debt relief. And as Gus mentioned, there is a lot at stake in this election. The governor is up, the attorney general, and our Secretary of State, who manages our elections at the state level. The Congress and our state legislature are all up for re-election. And then at the local level, our county commissioners, our city council members, our school board, at least half of all of those bodies are up for re-election this coming year. So on top of all of those things here in Rochester, we're going to continue to be at the center, at ground zero, really, of this fight over critical race theory that we've been seeing over the past few months, about this fight over vaccine and mask science and inclusion and equity in general and funding for our public schools. So we will be at the epicenter. We have currently 2 competitive Senate districts. Redistricting will change some things, but we know that there will be competitive races here. And so we want to be prepared and in position to exert our influence and our collective voice, no matter the outcomes of redistricting or the announced candidates. So in this process of caucus, where does our power really come from? Where does our influence come as a block to be able to shift the course of, who our candidates are going to be and how they're going to run the races so that they win? We have a goal to get 300 of us across Rochester to be part of the caucus process, because we know that endorsement for state legislative office requires 60% of endorsing convention delegates to support them. And 300 is our best estimate based on past numbers of what we'll need to make sure that we've got the numbers to be the deciders. And we want to make sure that candidates are accountable to the vision that we're putting forward, and the relationship that we want to have with these candidates for office. So whether you're going to join the DFL side and caucus with the DFL or caucus with the GOP, there really is a 3-part mission here. Part 1 is thinking outside of yourself. You may have a reason that you want to go in caucus and be a part of the process. And that is purpose for you to call in others to be a part of the process as well, for them to take the opportunity to exercise their agency in participating in the caucus process. So step one, and it looks like what I pasted in the chat didn't quite paste correctly, but step one is to build your squad of 10 others, create a list of 10 others that you're going to invite to participate in the caucus process with you. Step two is to participate in caucus. So if you're going to go in person with the GOP and show up on February 1st, participate in that way, or if you're going to participate on the DFL side and submit your form, do that, and in either case, become a delegate to the Senate District Convention. And step three is then to attend your Senate District Convention, where the votes will occur for the, who is going to be endorsed for the local offices, and votes on the resolutions, on the issue resolutions. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly to show folks what are some of the options to participate. So again, and I'll share this in the chat in a moment so that people can click these links and view for themselves if necessary. GOP side, held in person at Mayo High School, February 1st, 7 p.m. On the DFL side, contactless, everyone will need to fill out the form, which we'll go over more in depth at the very end of this meeting. In section 4 of that form, which we'll look at in a few minutes, make sure you're selecting that you want to be a delegate to the Senate District Convention. And if you do not do that, you will not have the power to vote on issue resolutions and candidate endorsements at the convention. You need to mark delegate to the Senate District Convention to have that power. Then there are a couple ways to submit your form. One is by emailing it to the chair of the Senate district that you live in. And there's a link at the bottom here that you can follow, caucus.dfl.org, which will help you figure out which district you live in if you don't currently know. You can also mail your form in to the local DFL office. The address is here. It needs to arrive before February 1st. So if you are going to do that option, I would suggest, mail it out by Wednesday of next week at the latest.
I would suggest January 25th at the latest.
I think that's a great suggestion. And in person, there will be a series of locations to drop off in person at a drop-off location on February 1st between 6:30 and 9 p.m. And there will be more information to come if that is your preferred option. But those are all the different ways to either participate in person for caucus this year or submit your form to attend contactlessly on the DFL side. So are there any questions about this three-part mission? To build your squad of 10 others, to submit your non-attendee form or participate at in-person caucus on the GOP side, and then attend your Senate District Convention as a delegate.
So love the idea, full support. But I understand COVID is going to limit our opportunities for this. But something I miss about our caucus experience is the ability to debate and talk with our neighbors and come to a consensus on what's important. So filling out a form and sending it in, like, okay, yep, that gets my voice heard. But we're skipping the debate part. Is there a mechanism for that being planned?
So none of the resolutions will be passed by these forms. The forms that people will be using to become delegates will allow them to go to the convention and have those kinds of conversations with their neighbors. Hopefully we'll be able to have the convention in person. It's still to be determined. At this point, there's not really a clear indication that we'll go virtual, and I and others here ultimately don't have the power to decide that. So
Nope.
hopefully we'll be able to, discuss and have discourse among concerned citizens around these issues and around, what is the path to winning and delivering what we need for our communities. And I hope we can have those conversations in person at the convention. But you're right, the forum itself really is two-dimensional, literally. But that is the process that we've got. And so making sure that as many folks as possible understand it, that they need to fill out the form, and that they absolutely must mark delegate to Senate District Convention to have the kind of power that you're talking about.
And
Well, I mean, the best part of a caucus is explaining to my neighbors how very, very wrong they are.
Okay.
well, we encourage everyone to really stick to the values that that undermine these different issues, so that people aren't threatened, and they will listen to you. And you can also, I think, form more connections with people when you stick to the values, because you find a lot more common ground. And then you can say, this is how these people are, what their stance are on these values and what they're doing, and so and so. And it gives you more power to have people really resonate with what's important in the community, and with working and supporting each other. What I'm doing is I'm going to be printing a lot of these non-attendee forms, and I'm going to be bringing them with me wherever I go. A lot of us do get together with people in other situations, and I think it's a great way to get more people involved and let them know that they're powerful and they can make things happen, and educate them on what's valuable to you, and connect it with what's value to them, and have them come to the caucuses.
So I have a question. Only so many people can go to the Senate convention. So what if more forms are turned in than there are spaces available? How is it chosen? How are people chosen?
That's a really good question. So my understanding, and I don't work for the DFL party, and I'm not on the inside, so someone might have slightly different details to tell you, but my understanding is that if a precinct has too many people that want to be delegates, then are allocated for that precinct, the local party unit will schedule a Zoom meeting in the week or so after caucus for folks to join online. And then I think joining online will be optional, because there won't be a formal process of voting who gets to be a delegate like would normally happen in the caucus room. If this were to be the case, it will be a randomized selection of who gets to go through to the next stage. So it's a bummer that some of this element of local laboratory of democracy aspect of caucus is stripped away. But this seems to be what they decided would be the most fair way to make sure everyone has equal chance to get through. Does that help to answer the question?
And we'd rather have more delegates than not enough. So we really encourage people to mark that box saying they want to be a delegate. It doesn't mean you have to go to the state convention, but it does empower a party to vote for a certain person that they support that's running for office.
In my precinct, we never have enough delegates. It doesn't matter whether it's a presidential year or non-presidential. We don't have enough warm bodies in the room.
Yeah, well, not in mine either, but I'm figuring maybe all you have to do is send in a piece of paper rather than actually show up. There might be more people.
Yeah, we never get enough delegates.
If it means that we've got more people in the end at the convention where we can have these discussions and debates, then I think that is a good result. So are there any other questions before I walk us through the commitment form really quickly, and then we'll close the meeting, and anyone else who wants to stay for 5 to 10 more minutes, I'll walk through in detail that DFL form. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again one more time here. This commitment form that I just put in the chat, this is to let us know that you are committing to caucus, that you're planning to submit your form. This is just for us to be able to keep track and in communication with you. There will be redistricting that takes place between caucus night and convention, and I didn't have time to dig into all of that, but making sure that we've got your name, your information, and your address so we can let you know when redistricting happens that very day. What is your new district and what is your new precinct? We'll be able to generate that information super quickly and send you an email. So please do register with this commitment form. Let us know that you will plan to attend caucus, that you're committed to become a delegate on that form. For this question of who invited you to fill out the form, you can just put my name. If you are willing to build your squad and get 10 others to participate in the process with you, start to list those names here, start to make your list. We're also having a series of phone banks starting next week that will allow space for people to get on a Zoom with other Isaiah leaders. So people like Patty and myself and Gus are going to be on Zoom, and we're going to say, you know, we're going to take time to call through our own personal lists. Patty's going to call through her 10 people that she hasn't heard back from yet, whether they've submitted their form. I'm going to do the same with my 15 people. And then we're going to call through more of a Rochester focused list of people that we know share our values, and we just want to make sure are informed about how to participate in caucus this year. So if you're willing to join a phone bank like that, mark that on this commitment form. And then that is the end of that form. So we are coming to the end here.
Jack will be sending the non-attendee form.
Yep, I'll be sending an email with all of the materials that I shared tonight.
Right, and I think on that box where it says what candidate are you supporting, you can also check what's the answer? Not.
It's uncommitted.
Undecided or uncommitted. Yeah, that
Right.
would be good. And then you can later support the candidate you want. It opens it opens the doors better for you that way. So my question to everyone is, what feels exciting for everyone now? What issues are you passionate about bringing into the space? What excites you about building accountable relationships with candidates? And what will this mission require of your leadership? What feels new, unfamiliar, tense, uncomfortable, or even scary? Everyone can unmute and just jump in or put something in the chat. Voting rights. One of the things for me is the women issues, that they have the right to decide how they want to treat, how their body's treated, and have access to the resources so that they can do that.
Immigrant rights are important. Paid family medical leave.
You know, what's exciting for me is, you know, people are saying, oh, people are losing hope, or they're not interested. And I think I don't agree with that. I think more people are getting interested. We just have to connect with them and let them know that this is an important election. It's going to pave the way for probably the next 10 years of how Minnesota will operate. And if you can impress on them that this is going to be your life and your choice and your chance to shape Minnesota, and talk about the issues that are real to them, you know, education or healthcare, living wage, which also is huge because it affects so many other aspects of what we're fighting for. So I hope you can get out there and get them to fill out those unattendee forms and have good chats with them.
I'll
Thanks,
just add on that note, Gus. What I appreciate about these opportunities and others is the intersectionality of all of these issues, and how they impact one another. And I just was reading an article for ministers recently and others that the cure to burnout and the stress that so many folks are feeling in so many areas is not self-care, but social reform, and completely shifting how we care for each other, type of workplaces we make, type of community we build. It's got to be collective. It can't be individual. And that's what this work is about, the collective liberation. So thank you for that. Jack, any final words? I know we have another meeting coming up on this account. We have a full Zoom account here at First UU, but what else would you like to share before we end?
I think that just about wraps it up. I think that was a great closing, Gus, and thank you for some final words, Rev Luke. Appreciate folks for being here tonight. I'll work with Rev Luke to get a full list of names of folks that were here tonight so I can get a follow-up email out with those materials. And if anyone wants to stay on for 3 minutes after this to look through that DFL form really quickly, if you have any questions, please do so. But otherwise, thanks for being here tonight, everyone.
Thank you.
Jack
Thanks,
and
Jack.
Gus,
Thanks, Gus.
thank you deeply for the effort.
Thank you, and I appreciate you sharing your, where you're at and where you're feeling about this process. And I think you're right that we're losing a lot this year, and hopefully we can have a really robust convention. And I hope that you're there to be a part of it, and to be part of those community conversations.
Amen to that.
Thanks, everyone. So if you're still here, I'm guessing you might want to look over this DFL form really quick. If not, just hop off, and I will share my screen really quick. We've got about 2 minutes before our time ends here. I know we've got another meeting, but it's a really straightforward form, folks. Box 1 is just filling out your information. This line here, precinct, if you know your precinct, you can write that in. You can also go to this great address that will tell you what your precinct is. If you can't figure it out, it's not the end of the world. They'll figure it out for you. Box 2 is just your information. Box 3 is whether you're eligible to attend the caucus. One piece of language that some people feel unsure about is I consider myself a member of the DFL party. There won't be anyone that asks you, deep in your heart, do you feel truly like a Democrat or something else other than that? If you feel, like you can say that you agree with a lot of the principles of what the party is fighting for, and that you are committed to being a part of the process in an honest way, I don't think you should feel any sort of concern about marking that, even if you don't necessarily say to anyone, I identify as a Democrat. Box 4 is the important piece that I was talking about. You want to make sure to mark this box, Senate District Delegate. That is the box that will give you the power to hopefully go to the convention in March and make the votes that will decide who the candidates are going to be and what resolutions get through. Box 5, you can support a candidate if you wish. You can mark uncommitted. And then once we send out all our list of resolutions, you can write the names of resolutions that you would like to voice your support for on this line. Finally, you can sign electronically. You don't have to print it out and write your signature down with your hand, which is a nice change from previous years. You can sign electronically and submit. So otherwise, I know we have to get going. If people have questions, please send me an email once I get that message out to folks. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Gus.